partners in government, our County Executive Mark Polenkars and Mayor Byron Brown. We have been through a lot of wars together, and this blizzard is the one for the ages. Certainly it is the blizzard of the century. And we are here to talk about our collaborative approach to dealing with this crisis, and it is a crisis, as well as joined by our incredible teams. I'll be introducing our representatives from the state who've joined me here. We spent Christmas in downtown Buffalo in a hotel yesterday, and I appreciate everyone, all the first responders and the National Guard who are here, all our local police and fire professionals for sacrificing the time away from their families so we can keep your families safe. I'm joined by Commissioner of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, Jackie Bray, and the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation, Marie-Therese Dominguez, as well as our Police Superintendent, Western New York Zone, Steve Nigrelli. I did have a chance to go out around the city this morning and survey some of the sites, and mostly to thank people. I was at the Buffalo Police Garage talking to the team of police department officials and their SWAT team, as well as our state police, and talk about how they have been out there, talking to them personally about their experiences, going into homes, going into vehicles, and too many tragic times finding people who did not survive the experience. And I want them to know that we know that it's difficult work to do. And they're grieving inside, as we all are, for the families who are getting the horrible, heartbreaking news that their loved ones succumbed to the storm over the last day or two. And our hearts are breaking for them. And we'll be there to support their families and get them through this, but also the people who are the ones who find their loved ones. It does take a toll. And I wanted these people, as tough as I know they are, to know that we need to make sure that they can handle the circumstances they're in, because none of them ever thought that this is what they'd be doing on their Christmas holiday either. So I wanted to thank them. I also had a chance to see some of our snow plowing operations on Route 33, the DOT. Extraordinary what they've been doing. And it was very important to keep Route 33 open because that is a gateway to one of our major hospitals, ECMC. So we had to make sure that the doctors and nurses and professionals could get to their jobs, as well as clearing a path for ambulances and other emergency vehicles to get to the hospitals as well. So I had a chance to go thank them. Also stopped by the Maston Avenue Armory to talk to the men and women of the National Guard who've come in from all over the state, have been deployed there, over 400 strong. More are on the way, and we're going to continue having them involved in our missions, search and rescue, plowing, traffic enforcement, bring food and water to our warming shelters and to our first responders, as well as medical transport to get people where they need to go. And in fact, one such case, we had a situation where the head of surgery at ECMC was trapped in a vehicle with his elderly mother, and they're running out of fuel, and they are rescued by our state fire teams as well, who have been doing an extraordinary job. I don't think a lot of people talk about the state fire teams, but they have been everywhere, really the backbone of this operation for us. So that is what I just witnessed on the ground this morning. I'm in downtown Buffalo. We'll continue to be here, and as much as we can see the skies right now, we know that the storm is coming back. We're expecting another 6 to 12 inches. And in the south towns, the southern part of Erie County, a little bit south of here, they had 30 to 40 inches of snow overnight. So anyone who declares victory and says it's over, it is way too early to say this is at its completion of, maybe the severity is downplaying now, and right now it's not as bad as it had been over the last couple of days, but it is still a dangerous situation to be out. And that is why the driving bans and county executive and the mayor can address what's going on in their municipalities, but the driving bans that we have here at the state level, the New York State Thruway Authority closed from the Pennsylvania border all the way to Henrietta near Rochester. That is because we still have scores and scores of vehicles that were abandoned when people left during the storm, or just in a ditch they can't possibly get out. We have had snowplows, major snowplows, and rescue vehicles. I saw them myself in ditches buried in snow. So those circumstances are still difficult. We need to have the roads open to continue plowing and salting and removing all those vehicles. So the thruway will remain closed until further notice. We're assessing right now what the conditions will be over the next few hours and decide when we can get it open safely. Also closed are the routes 190, the Route 400, 219, and Route 5. Those are the main arterials that the state is responsible for. Back to the search and rescue, our teams alone in the county and the city have their own stories. We had over 550 rescues, transporting people all over, people from out of town who had no idea what they were in for. It's extraordinary. The people in Williamsville and Christmas Eve rescued by a plow team of family of six was rescued. It was a very frightening experience for all of them, and I'm so grateful that we had our plow drivers literally involved in the rescue as well, and that goes to the testament of the hardworking state workers and local officials and partners we had working as well. So the National Guard's on the ground. We have the weather forecast, not that great, but it's improving. And I also want to mention what's going on in Watertown, another site in the state that we're responsible for assisting with, in constant communication with their leadership team, the county and the mayor of Watertown. They're continuing to get more snow. Another 3 inches per hour is coming down, and some of the roads in that area are closed. So I just want to say a couple things. This has been a joint effort, and I want the people of Western New York to know who are frustrated that we are working so hard, and the people around us are working so hard, and I'm grateful for all of them. But if you're that mom at home with kids who've been out of power for a long time, that was me not that many years ago. I know the experience. It is frightening. It is, exasperating. And you're just saying, when is this going to end? I understand that pain and that frustration intensely. And we'll be getting through this together very soon. I feel confident of that. But the most important thing is, please stay at home for the next day. Luckily, the kids are off school. Otherwise, we would have been having to deal with the loss of learning, and also making sure that, since today is a holiday and over the weekend was a holiday, it's a big travel weekend. But hopefully those of you who aborted your plans to travel out of state will continue to be safe and stay off the roads so we can continue to rescue people, get them safe, and make sure that the roads are clear so we can reopen our community as soon as humanly possible. That is our desire here today. Mayor Byron Brown, I want to thank you again for all the work that you have done. And again, I had a chance to see the Buffalo PD in operation. These people are working so hard. They're so dedicated. And what they've had to see and witness over the last few days with the fatalities that we've been talking about it is just extraordinary to know what they go through. They're all human beings as well, and this has to have an effect on them. And they were also separated from their families. So continue to give our gratitude to the Buffalo Police Department, their SWAT teams, their rescue teams, and everyone else. And also Rochester has sent people. Rochester Police Department is here. Our National Guard is here from Rochester, from Niagara County, from Syracuse as well. So this is an all hands on deck from the state of New York to help the people of Buffalo and Western New York all together. So Mayor Byron Brown.
Thank you very much, Governor Hochul, and thank you for your great leadership, your coordination, your communication. I have been in constant contact with Governor Hochul directly, as well as the Commissioner of Homeland Security, the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation, and the Superintendent of State Police. I thank them for the support of resources that they have provided to the City of Buffalo. We have also been in constant and close communication with County Executive Mark Polenkars, and I thank County Executive Polenkars for his support and communication as well. The focus of the city's operations have been on life safety, plowing to get to motorists that have been stranded in vehicles, plowing to help emergency personnel get to emergency medical service calls, and working very closely with National Grid to help National Grid get to power stations and other areas so that they can restore power in the city of Buffalo. At one point, we had more than 20,000 without power in the city of Buffalo. That number is now under 10,000. We continue to work very aggressively with National Grid and other partners to open up areas that they need to get to. National Grid has provided a list of locations to the City of Buffalo that they need to access. We've been working not only with city plows, but state resources and county support to get to those locations in the City of Buffalo so that we can restore power as quickly as possible. Governor Hochul talked about the danger and frustration of being in homes without power. There are some people that have been without power in their homes since Friday. We know that. I myself and my family were without power. I can tell you at one point the temperature in our home got down to about 40 degrees. It was very uncomfortable. We had to layer up. We had our 5-year-old great-nephew and 6-year-old great-niece with us, so we certainly understand the challenges that so many families are going through and the frustration that people are facing. As the governor said, the driving ban is still in effect in the City of Buffalo. We are asking people to stay off the roads. The Buffalo Police have literally, in a variety of different ways, provided hundreds of rescues and have rescued many stranded motorists in the City of Buffalo. In some of these circumstances, some of these people might not have survived if it weren't for the efforts of first responders to rescue them from vehicles. Governor Hochul also mentioned the death toll in the City of Buffalo. The Buffalo Police Department has retrieved 18 of these precious souls. That is not an easy thing to do. Our police officers are human. It is painful to find members of your community that are deceased. Those that are deceased actually on streets in our community who were trying to walk out during storm conditions, got disoriented and passed away out in the street, to retrieve fatalities, people who passed away in cars, and to retrieve people who passed away in homes. This has been a very difficult and dangerous storm. It's been described as a once-in-a-generation storm, and everything that has been forecast, we have gotten in the City of Buffalo, and then some. Again, this has been a coordinated effort. We have worked together very closely. Fortunately, again, with these blizzard conditions, there was a lot of advance warning, gave us the opportunity to plan together, to put out messages to the community. To the majority of people that heeded those messages, I say thank you. That has helped us get streets clear, get to people that are in distress. But as I conclude and get ready to turn things over to County Executive Polenkars, I want to make it very clear that we need people to stay off the roads. You will still get stuck out there. Many streets in the City of Buffalo are still impassable. We have plows on mains and secondaries. We're into residential streets now, but the driving conditions are still very difficult. The driving ban is still in place. Please do not drive in the City of Buffalo. Now I am going to turn things over to my other partner in government, County Executive Mark Polenkars.
Thank you, Mayor. And on behalf of the people of Erie County and our team, I want to thank everyone in the City of Buffalo, from Buffalo PD, Buffalo Fire, Buffalo Department of Public Works, who've been working so hard in what we described as the worst conditions we've ever seen. So thank you to your team for all that you're doing, and especially to all the first responders and law enforcement out there in the sad task they've had to do of retrieving bodies, not only in the city, but fellow police officers outside of the city in Amherst and Cheektowaga. And to the governor, of course, thank you. She has been here. She's had her teams on the ground. We have, there's so many agencies, so many acronyms, I can't say them all, but I do want to thank the governor for calling up everyone possible to assist us. And I also have to give a shout out to our friends and colleagues across New York State. Nassau County has reached out to us and is sending a group right now of search and rescue. So to County Executive Bruce Blakeman in Nassau County, thank you. Adam Bello in Monroe County, County Executive there, has reached out. They're sending folks from Monroe and Rochester. Dan McCoy from Albany County, also the same thing. Albany County is sending additional assistance so that we can get the community open as quickly as possible. As the mayor noted, there's still a driving ban, of course, in the city of Buffalo, but there also is driving bans in Amherst, Cheektowaga, Evans, Hamburg, Clarence, and the city of Lackawanna. At this point, those are all going to stay into effect at least through the daylight hours and probably into the overnight hours and tomorrow morning as well. We were able to lift the driving ban in the town of West Seneca. It is a driving advisory in the town of West Seneca now. That does not mean it is easy to drive, and if you don't have to go anywhere, please don't. There are still walls of snow along some of the main roads, which make it difficult. They have to cut those down. They have to expand roads from curb to curb. It hasn't happened totally yet, but after consultation and the request of West Seneca Supervisor Gary Dixon, we did agree to lift the driving ban for the town of West Seneca. As I noted at the 9:30 press conference, the Erie County Department of the Erie County Department of Health Medical Examiner's Office has confirmed 25 deaths across all of Erie County. Those also include those in the city of Buffalo. There are some the city of Buffalo may have that our Department of Health has not been able to confirm yet and are in the process of confirmation. As was referred to me last night by the health commissioner, last night was a very bad night. As we know, we had 12 additional deaths that we confirmed compared to the 13 that we had announced by 11 o'clock last night. And many of those came in the late night, overnight hours, and our team from the medical examiner's office had to work with the area hospitals as well as what was received at the morgue to try to confirm those. And it was a tough night, and we do expect that there will be more as there are additional individuals that are found across our community. I can just say the same thing on behalf of myself. Our Commissioner of the Department of Public Works, William Gary, is here. Stay off the roads. The driving ban is in place not to inconvenience you. It's to help us get through this as quickly as possible, to open up communities so that we can get in and do what we need to do so that we can open up as fast as possible. But we are still getting reports of individuals who are not only going out on the roads, but getting stuck. Here we are. Storm started on Friday. We know people want to get out, but there are people who are going out, and we don't think for really a good apparent reason, who are getting stuck on roads that we had previously cleared or were attempting to clear. And all you're doing is hindering our efforts to respond, including, most importantly, life-saving response. We had to dig out and help get a number of ambulance companies so that they could get their ambulances back in service. We have ambulances coming as mutual aid from outside of the Erie County, but if we send them to a place, if somebody's having a heart attack or a major issue and they can't get down the road because now someone's stuck again, you could cost somebody's life. So please, stay home. And once again, thank you, Governor, for all that you're doing and the team is doing. It is making this operation at least faster from a standpoint of having every available equipment and apparatus and people that we can. The snow, when it fell, was with a vengeance, with a ferocity, and during that period when we had to pull all the troops off, it was the worst I've ever seen. And I did live through the blizzard of '77. So thank you for all the work that they're doing.
Any questions at this time?
Thank you, Governor. We're going to open up this for reporter questions. Please use the raise hand function to indicate you have a question, and we will unmute your line.
Okay.
We'll wait about 30 seconds to make sure that everybody who would like to raise their hand can.
Okay. In the interim, I'll to say that we've also sent our request for a emergency disaster declaration to the White House. We want to make sure that our localities know to keep track of their expenses in search of reimbursement from the federal government. The White House, as we've all spoken to, but I spoke to the Chief of Staff to President Biden on Christmas Day. They said they'll have almost an immediate turnaround for us, which I'm grateful for their interest in helping all of us be made whole after going through this. And they said if there's anything else we possibly need, they'll be there for us. And so I'm grateful to the White House, the Biden administration, for their response on that as well.
Governor, can I make a couple of
Sure.
acknowledgments just very quickly? I want to also acknowledge, the county executive was good to acknowledge some of the county executives that reached out. I want to acknowledge Rochester Mayor Malik Evans, who reached out to offer assistance, Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh, who reached out to offer assistance, Mount Vernon Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, who reached out to offer assistance. And all of us have heard from Senator Chuck Schumer, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and Attorney General Letitia James offering support as well.
So the whole state is showing their love for Western New York. Any questions?
Thank you, Governor. Your first question is going to be from Dominic Lavallo from Spectrum News 1. I'm going to unmute your line, Dominic. Go ahead and ask your question.
Good morning, Governor. Good morning, everyone there. Thank you for taking the time for us. So, County Executive Hochul are a very similar question this morning in this earlier briefing, but we're hearing a lot of reports of people who are just either without power and running out of resources. Is there any services coming into place? Any plan to get more resources to those people? And also, our newsroom in general, I'm sure many newsrooms have been getting calls of people who are feeling almost overlooked based on the fact they've seen plows go right by their streets, and they are still with several feet of snow in their driveway on the streets, and they are stuck in their homes. And obviously, why will people leave their homes? Any response to that, and what messages to those people?
Well, first of all, I'll have the commissioners respond who are managing the operations, but their frustration is real. I understand that, being in a place where you're saying, why are the plows going by? Why am I still at home? Why am I having trouble getting food from the grocery store? This is real. This is trauma on a family and an individual. And I want to acknowledge that. And that is why we are working with such urgency to deal with a wide-scale storm. If this had been a narrow band and we could identify a finite geographic area, it's easier to throw in a lot of resources. But when this first started, this was declared to be a statewide event. And obviously, it's lingered far longer over Western New York than we anticipated, particularly this part of Erie County and the city of Buffalo. So we're working really hard to get the resource to you. But no, their frustrations are real. I'm here to acknowledge that. And Commissioner Bray, if you have anything on the delivery of services or the county executive.
Yeah, two things. The first is that in terms of power restoration, we had about almost 23,000 households without power in the county last night. We're down to about 12,500. So power is coming back on. There were 4 substations damaged that provided power to the city. Of those 4, all 4 are fully re-energized. 2 are not only re-energized, but all of the distribution circuitry is fixed. The other 2 are re-energized, but we're still fixing, or the National Grid is still fixing that distribution energy circuitry. And so we are doing everything we can to restore power to those who continue to not have power. In terms of the plow operations, right now, plow operations are focused on life safety. That has meant, number 1, making sure that first responders can get where they need to go. Number 2, making sure that hospital personnel, other medical personnel can get where they need to be. Number 3, transporting emergency medical calls. That might mean that people see a plow passing their residential street. It is not because we don't want to plow you out. We do want to plow you out, but given the intensity of the storm and the amount of cars that are stranded and trucks that are stranded, we've had to use those plowing resources for emergency response. As soon as we are able to move those resources to the residential streets, we will. The best thing people can do is to stay off the road so we don't have additional stranded vehicles. In terms of resources, we have been able to supply firehouses in the city with food and water. And so we will do the best we can to make sure that people have access to what they need as we're getting folks going again.
Thank you. Our next question is coming from Jonathan Epstein from the Buffalo News.
Did you want to add to anything?
Muted, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, there have been reports about some looting and some concerns about price gouging. Can you elaborate on what's been happening along those lines? Is
Jonathan, there has been some looting in the city of Buffalo. Let me just mention my team that I'm with very quickly, and then I'll turn that over to Police Commissioner Gramaglia. Obviously, we're here in Police Fire Headquarters at Dillon in downtown Buffalo. Police Commissioner Gramaglia has been working around the clock. We're also here with Public Works Commissioner Nate Martin, who has been working around the clock. I'll have Commissioner Gramaglia at this time talk about the looting and the police response to that.
Thank you. So, yeah, we are aware of reports of looting. We've seen some of that on social media. Our officers have responded to several reports. We have made a few arrests. We have intervened in some of those. We've assisted at least one location that I'm aware of right now in getting a store boarded up. So our officers are out there. We've been able to, throughout the storm, transition our patrol officers to get back more concentrated on their patrol efforts, while we have our search and rescue and recovery teams that are going out and doing the very difficult work of recovering bodies and also doing check the welfare calls. So we have made the transition. We are aware of it. We are dealing with it. And, you know, of course, we don't condone it.
I want to add to that, if I may. I just want to add that people who are out looting when people are losing their lives in this harsh winter storm is just absolutely reprehensible. I don't know how these people can even live with themselves, how they can look at themselves in the mirror. They are the lowest of the low. And from some of the pictures that we've seen in social media of these looters, they're not looting foods and medicines. They're just looting items that they want. So these aren't even people in distress. These are people that are taking advantage of a natural disaster and the suffering of many in our community to take what they want from retailers, also potentially putting those services at risk in the communities where they are looting.
Jonathan, you also asked about price gouging. Price gouging is illegal, and we have the Attorney General's office, and our state is prepared to investigate any complaints of price gouging, and those who engage in this disgusting practice at a time when people in our community are hurting, that they are trying so hard to get basic necessities. There's a scarcity because the stores have been closed since Friday. Well, then shame on them, and they're going to meet the law in a way that they probably did not encounter. So we're going to be going after them. I also want to say that the Department of Financial Services is engaging the insurance industry, making sure that we have claims adjusters on the ground to help people who've had damage, whether it's the weight of snow on their roofs, whether it's water damage in places like my building where the pipes burst from being frozen. So we want to make sure that people know that we'll get help to them as soon as possible. And one more mission I wanted to say that's important for everybody to know. People who've been violating our traffic bans may have thought that they could get away with it. They are wrong. There are consequences. You will be ticketed. And part of our National Guard responsibility is going to be standing there at intersections and questioning people. And certainly someone who's a first responder or has a medical emergency or a doctor or nurse getting their jobs, they're clearly welcome on the roads. We want to make sure they get there safely. But anybody else, you are risking getting a ticket in a very embarrassing situation if you are caught. And we're going to be bringing reinforcements to enforce this. Otherwise, we can't get the job done to get the roads back open so everybody else who's following the rules, following the laws, and I'm grateful for all the vast majority of Western Yorkers who are doing what they're asked to do, even though it's uncomfortable and it's a sacrifice. But we want them to get back to life as normal as soon as possible. And those lawbreakers who are just ignoring our bans right now are standing in the way, and they're going to face the consequences. Another question?
Okay, our next question will be coming from Michael Gold of the New York Times. Michael, your line is open. Please unmute yourself.
Thanks. Governor and Mayor and County Executive, I know we're all very focused on what's happening now, and we're still clearing out of the storm, but we're looking at a situation where last month in Buffalo was a record snowstorm for November. Here we have another historic snowstorm, and I wonder how you all are thinking about preparations that can be made for whatever the next major weather event is, so that we don't have this scenarios we seem to be having where people are running low on supplies and running low on resources, and how much thought you've given to kind of these sorts of storms occurring more often in the future?
Historic storms are no longer historic to us. That's become a way of life in our state, and that's results of climate change, as you see extreme weather events all over our country. But all of us in state and county and local government know we have to be prepared for the next big one. I said this literally days after we were embedded in Buffalo for it seemed like 4 or 5 days trying to get through an epic storm, the most snow ever deposited in a 24-hour period in the history of New York State. And we had to get through this region being paralyzed. But the very next day, we knew the next storm could literally be a day away, a week away, a month away. And we have been prepared. We made sure that all of our inventories, our stockpiles, were brought up to where they need to be. So the state has plenty of gasoline, for example. We have been able to go out using state gasoline resources through state fire to literally fuel local first responder vehicles because we had enough. We have MREs stockpiled everywhere. Camp Road facility in Hamburg, right where I used to live, has thousands of MREs ready to be distributed to food banks and to get for people. Medical supplies. So you're absolutely right. We have a responsibility to have all these resources on hand. But when Mother Nature literally shuts down and creates a wall that you cannot see past, it is not safe for not just emergency vehicles, but the trucks that are bringing groceries to the stores, and the stores are shut down anyhow. So that is the paralysis we're experiencing, but we do have the warming shelters stood up. We have plenty of cots and blankets, and so people are taking advantage of this, something that, again, it's our responsibility to be ready for. And I'd like Commissioner of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, Jackie Bray, to talk about our other preparations.
Sure, absolutely. So prior to any storm, including the previous 2 historic storms, we begin local coordination days in advance. We coordinate across state agencies with our county and our local partners. As the governor said, we open all of our stockpiles, we refresh all of our stockpile inventories, and we bring in heavy equipment from around the state to pre-position appropriately. In terms of the historic nature of both of these events back to back, as the governor said, we are seeing an increase in extreme weather. We know that. And so what we're doing is when we get forecasts, we're working far more hand in glove with forecasters than we ever have before to make sure that we have real-time information and to make sure that we can imagine how bad something will be. Part of what we have all had to do over the last couple years of extreme weather is to change the realm of the possible in our own imaginations. As everyone said, no one thought we'd see a blizzard worse than the one of 77 here, and we did this week. So we're working hand in glove with forecasters to make sure we understand how bad it really can get.
And I'll just add on that the pre-positioning of equipment is critical. And that is why literally the day before, we had talked about days before, how we can bring in resources, manpower, woman power, and starting with our utilities. We knew that if the power went out, that this could be life-threatening because of the Arctic chills. And so we had, the norm is for the state, 5,000 utility workers. We told them to ramp it up. We had 7,000 utility workers deployed, ready to go where they're needed. They came to Western New York. So it has not been a challenge of resources or equipment because we had hundreds and hundreds of snowplows and personnel pre-positioned waiting for this storm to come. It became the inability to move once the snow started with the ferocity that it hit us with. So you could not safely travel, even though you had enough personnel and equipment, and that became one of the challenges that no preparation can help you overcome. But the second there's a break in the weather, we're out there with plows and emergency crews and doing everything we can to, especially with our life-saving missions, which is priority number 1 for us.
If I could.
Certainly.
We also work to inform the public. The forecast was early. We knew what was coming. We knew how bad this storm was going to be. So days in advance of the storm hitting on Friday morning, we put out messages to the public through news conferences, through social media, through radio, telling the public, buy your groceries by Thursday night. have family members that are going to travel to be with you, have them move up their travel plans so they are with you by Thursday night. We told people to purchase candles and flashlights and batteries. We said if you have to do last-minute Christmas shopping, do it by Thursday night. All those messages were put out by the governor, by the county executive, by myself, days in advance, so the public could be prepared and would not have to try to drive on Friday in a storm, on Saturday in blizzard and whiteout conditions. So we were prepared. The forecast did come early. The forecast of a once-in-a-generation storm was accurate, and that was communicated to the public.
If I can reiterate, this was not a lack of apparatus. This was not a lack of personnel. We were at the mercy of Mother Nature. It's as simple as that. When we have our multi-ton snowplows and trucks and high lifts that we have to bring in, because they have the best traction, they have the ability to go up some of the craziest hills we have in the county, when we have to bring them in because it's too dangerous for them to be out there, and we had to bring them in for hours and hours and hours, it doesn't matter if you had 1,000 more pieces of equipment and 10,000 personnel. There's still nothing you could have done in that period. It was that bad. I know it's hard for people to believe, but it was like looking at a white wall for 14 to 18 hours straight, depending where you were. 3 feet in front of you, at your just in front of your hood of your car, was nothing but a white wall. And as somebody who's lived here pretty much my entire life, who lived through the blizzard of '77, that 18-hour period was the worst period of weather I have ever seen, and other people who've got a lot more experience than me said the same thing.
Thank you, County Executive. That's all the time we have for questions this afternoon. I'll turn it over to Governor Hochul for any closing remarks before we wrap up.
No, thank you. I just want to thank the people of Western New York for hanging in there. I know how hard this is. You've been doing what we've asked you to do by and large, and again, the end is almost here, but let's make sure we get through the final days safely and keep all of our first responders and the snowplow drivers and everyone else who's out there in a uniform to keep all of us safe. Keep them in your prayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor.